In this video, I'm going to show you 5 fantastic places to photograph the New York skyline. So, first stop, Weehawken, New Jersey. Right across the Hudson River from Manhattan, which you can see in back of me. There's a ton of places to shoot along the river here. The spot that I have found, which seems to work pretty well for me, is a little street called Henley Place. Usually a place to park. And the nice thing is, there's this great walking area up and down the Hudson. I'll turn this way. You could see in back of me, and even going north up the Hudson. So there's a ton of space for you. Clear, uninterrupted view of Manhattan. Now, one cool thing about this spot is that this area lines up pretty well with 42nd Street and some of the streets in Midtown. So, if you want to be here on around November 30th or January 11th, you will get Manhattan Henge, which is when the sunrise aligns with the streets in Midtown Manhattan. So you could get a beautiful sunrise coming right down 42nd Street from across the Hudson River. I've tried it before. It's pretty amazing. Hopefully you get a clear day. Now, getting a good shot of New York City always depends on the light and the sky. And this morning it looks like I've got a pretty good sky. We'll see what happens when the sun really starts to rise. It's going to be rising, unfortunately, more from this way. But I'm hoping that these clouds up here, which are looking pretty good, pick up some great colors. Now, if you come at sunset, actually you get some pretty cool shots with the sun setting behind you, bouncing off the buildings of Manhattan. Here's a shot I took a couple years ago where I had a great sunset just splashing across Midtown New York. Well, if you are shooting from this location, I do suggest, if you're here for sunrise, getting here early, and if you're here for sunset, staying late so you can get kind of a night shot or a blue hour shot of New York with the lights on. This is why I got here an hour early this morning. I have to leave my house at about 3:50, but definitely worth it for this view. By the way, one great thing to do when you're shooting a skyline like this is to do a pano. And so what I've done is taken a number of shots, moving my camera kind of down the river, and then when I get home I will put them together in Photoshop and come up with a really high quality panorama of this great city. Now, if you come to this spot, make sure you bring your long lens because you can also get a view of downtown Manhattan, which includes the World Trade Center, that tall building, the World Financial Center, and a ton of other buildings as well. If you bring a long enough lens, you can get a shot of the Verrazano Bridge, which connects New Jersey and Staten Island. I'll show you a shot of it. I don't have that long a lens. I've got my 70 to 200 millimeter lens, but I'll crop it in so you get a sense of what the bridge looks like from here. Okay, I'm gonna head home soon. Wasn't a fantastic sunrise, but always love being up seeing the city at the start of the day. I'm going to stick around a little bit just to see if the sun splashes on those buildings downtown. There's some dark clouds behind it. Might look kind of cool. But I'm going to head home and we will move on to our next location. So the stop today is in Brooklyn. I'm going to start in an area called Dumbo. I'm going to walk down to the Brooklyn Bridge Park, and this is a must stop if you want to shoot the New York City skyline. Must stop. Well, I have made it down to Brooklyn. I'm in an area called Dumbo, which is down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. You can hear some of the noise from the Manhattan Bridge right now. And from this area you get an amazing view of downtown New York. So I'm going to set up my tripod, get some shots. Sun is still probably an hour from rising. So we've got some time to shoot in either darkness or the blue hour, and we'll get some great shots, I think. All right, well, once you get that classic shot from right by the Manhattan Bridge where I was, where you get the city in the background and the Brooklyn Bridge as well, then you should head over to Brooklyn Bridge Park, where I'm heading now, and just another amazing shot of downtown Manhattan. Well, I walked under the Brooklyn Bridge, and I'm now in Brooklyn Bridge Park, and there is an amazing view of downtown Manhattan. You should bring a wide-angle lens if you come here, because you want to get Manhattan and the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm using my 16 to 35 millimeter lens, and I'm getting some really good shots. I happen to come here at sunrise because I know I can get a parking spot. I know there's nobody here. Sunset is actually a great spot to shoot from here because the sun, depending on the time of year, sets behind Manhattan and back of me, and you could get some phenomenal shots. But this spot, really sunrise, sunset, is truly amazing. Well, I'm gonna walk down the river a little bit, just get a different vantage point. Again, the sun still hasn't risen yet, so nice pink glow in back of Manhattan. And as the sun rises, the light will bounce off some of these buildings across the river. I just love this spot, it's fantastic. Now, if you do come down, try to bring a long lens as well, because you do get a view of the Statue of Liberty out in the harbor, but it's pretty far away, so you need a long lens. Okay, so I got that classic shot from where the Manhattan Bridge is in Dumbo. I got these wonderful images in Brooklyn Bridge Park. I'm going to go over to a spot now where pretty much every photographer comes and shoots this. It's a great spot where you get these pilings in the foreground, city in the background, perfect for long exposures. I'm going to be there in about 3 minutes. It's pretty close. Alright, well, I set up a shot here. Just looking down this path right to New York City. Again, everyone takes a shot. There's a reason. It's a pretty cool shot. It's low tide. Some of these pilings don't look phenomenal, but in low tide. But still, it's a great spot. So sunset is probably a better time to come here because the sun sets kind of behind the buildings. But kind of like sunrise, no one's here, and sometimes you do get some great colors in the sky. Got here one morning, it was very foggy. I got some very mystical feeling shots. So kind of any time of day, it's pretty good. Well, I came back over to the other part of the waterfront, just where you face Lower Manhattan, and I'm going to try just some longer exposures here, just to smooth out that water and create more of an ethereal feel to the scene. Alright, I am going to head home. Fantastic morning in Brooklyn. Sun has risen. I gotta go take a nap and start the day. Stick around for my next stop on great places to shoot the New York skyline. While you're in the area, head over to Washington Street and get the shot of the Manhattan Bridge between these great old buildings. Well, I made it down to the Jersey City waterfront. This is a great area to shoot downtown Manhattan, which you can see in back of me. Parking can be a little tricky, but if you get here early, you can definitely get a spot on the street, which I did. One of the landmarks that you could always look for when you're finding this spot is the Colgate sign, the Colgate clock, which I'm sitting right near. But you get a great shot of downtown, and if you use a longer lens, you would get a great shot of Midtown Manhattan as well. Okay, to capture all of downtown, I am using my wide-angle lens, my 16 to 35. I think I'm out to about 20 millimeters right now. I got very lucky this morning because it's an incredibly calm day. There is not a breeze in the sky. So I'm getting a very cool reflection in the river, which you can see behind me. I wish there was some more clouds in the sky, but it's just like this perfect blue hour moment to shoot Lower Manhattan from. So it's still pretty dark out, still about 45 minutes before sunrise. I'm glad I got here early though, because I'm getting these great shots of the city illuminated. Well, I moved up the river a little bit, put my long lens on so I can capture Midtown from here. The reflection of the water is not as dramatic, but it's pretty good. And this time of year, the sun actually rises over Midtown, and so the sky will be a little bit brighter, I think, at this hour. And if I'm lucky, I get a nice orange glow as the sun rises over the city. Well, I decided to head back down the river a bit. In fact, I'm right in front of the Colgate clock. You can see that behind me. I just think I'll get a better shot of the city from here as the sun rises. I'm focusing on lower Manhattan again with my wide-angle lens. We'll see how it comes out. Well, the sun has risen and I am done shooting, and it's not even 7 o'clock yet. Head home, probably take a nap, and get these on the computer a little later. Well, I made my way to Queens, New York this morning, to Long Island City, area called Gantry Plaza State Park. And as you can see in back of me, there's a great view of Midtown Manhattan from here. So let me get my camera out, my tripod set up, and start to work on getting some images. Well, I've set up my tripod and I'm starting to take some shots. It's still pretty dark out. I've got a street light illuminating me, that's why I look bright, but it's pretty dark, so I'm going out to 30 seconds. Kind of a boring sky this morning. I was hoping to get some nice clouds, but I'm not really getting them. So these may end up in black and white. Good news is it's very calm, and so there's kind of a cool reflection in the East River here, which will add to the image. So let me take some shots and see how they come out. Just one quick tip, if you're doing a long exposure and there's a light source near the camera, like the sun or in this case a street light, you should try to cover up the viewfinder because the light can leak in there and distort the image a bit. And so I've got my viewfinder covered and I'm getting some good clean shots. Taking a bunch of shots. I am going to try a very long exposure now, so I popped on my 10-stop neutral density filter and I'll go out to about 3.5 minutes, and that will really smooth out that water, and hopefully with the sun rising now I get some detail in the buildings. Just gotta be patient and we'll see how it turns out. Well, I took some shots here. I am gonna make my way around this area a little bit. Maybe look for some other shots to take. Maybe try to get something of downtown because the sun is starting to bounce off those buildings over there. And see what I can find. My next stop is Astoria, Queens, right along the East River. We get a great shot of New York City with not one but two bridges in the foreground. Well, this morning I am in Astoria, Queens, right near Astoria Park. And from this vantage point, you get a great shot of Midtown Manhattan looking right under the RFK Bridge, which you see in back of me. Some of you probably know the RFK Bridge is the Triborough Bridge, but the proper name is RFK Bridge. And so I drove down here, found a place to park, and just getting some long exposure shots now because it's still about 45 minutes before sunrise. There's another bridge right by this area in Astoria called the Hellgate Bridge. And I think the term Hellgate refers to how hellish these currents were for boats probably a couple centuries ago. It's an old name. And it's a really cool looking bridge. I'm going to try to walk north a little bit on the East River and shoot from under the Hellgate Bridge, capture that and the RFK Bridge and the city. I'm not sure if I can get the proper vantage point, but I'll give it a try. Well, I found a good spot to shoot both bridges and New York City behind it. You will need a wide lens because I'm pretty close to this bridge and I'm going to capture most of it. So I'm using my 16 to 35 millimeter lens and I'm getting kind of the shot I want, the composition that I want. Climbed down on these rocks here. Not sure how wise that was, but you do get a better view because it's not as obstructed with some of the trees. Just really windy down here. I'm not sure you can hear me at all, but it's a really cool point of view for this shot. Well, I had some pretty nice clouds in the sky that were moving fairly quickly. So I popped on my neutral density filter, did a long exposure, and it got some amazing shots of these streaking clouds across the sky above this bridge heading towards the city. Really, really cool stuff. I was able to get off those rocks safely, but I did put on my long lens, climb back out there to get some more detailed shots of the city. Well, great morning. Got some good shots. Gonna head home, check them out. This was my last stop on 5 great places to shoot the New York City skyline. If you like these videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. And until next time.